Ah. Okay, dear friends, please take a seat. How are you doing? Okay. Okay, are you waking up? Yeah. So, good morning. Oh. It's difficult for an artist, 9 o'clock morning, and well, hopefully your brain is ready for a new encounter. So today we start with several topics, introduction about the real world, with the real problems artists face. And as I said yesterday, most of the time you are all so busy in your workshop, atelier, running around, doing your gigs, preparing in your art, that you do not understand always what is happening to you when life is difficult and there is no income and whatever. So this whole series of today and tomorrow morning talk about, can you understand the real problem? Well, that's one side. Having said so, then the other part is, what can you do about it? Because that is even more important, how really to make your life work. So it's all about your future. It's about the next steps you need to take when you are home. So the first lecture this morning is from Alexandra Smith. And she is one of us. She's an artist who made it. That's interesting. So here is a lot to learn. Yeah? And by the way, she's very smart. Yes. And some months ago we met in Rotterdam. And she made a very good impression on me. Hopefully me too on her. It's important for a man, you know, that you make a good impression. Image is all. Okay. Having said so, Alessandra, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Give her a hand. Give her a hand.
Very good morning to everyone. I'm very grateful to be here. I hope I can live up to Lane's expectations. Other than that, I hope we can have a lot of fun together. What I'll be doing today is explain to you how you can continue to do what you love. Because I would like to start with one question. Who can actually make a living of doing what they love in this room? Can I see hands? Great. Then congratulations, because I feel if you're able to do that, then you're very blessed. I wasn't always in this position that I could do that, actually. I've been an entrepreneur for a little over 10 years now. And today I would like to share 3 lessons with you that I feel is important if your goal is to make a living out of doing what you love. So, are we a little bit awake right now? Because maybe we can do a little bit like this. This is how usually I wake up. Maybe like this. Very good, very good. Okay, so we're awake. So let me start by the story I have. Like I said, a little over 10 years ago, I registered at the Chamber of Commerce in Amsterdam, and I was going to be a writer, because ever since I was little, I was writing. I was always writing. And I just figured if I just do what I love, then everything else will fall magically into place, right? Wrong. What happened was I got lucky. In the first few years, I found some regular clients. I was doing some copywriting and editing, and things basically run by itself. Yeah, I was lucky. But then, in the 4th year of my independent professional entrepreneurship, things started to change, because it was 2012, and the crisis had hit some of my bigger clients, and thus me, because I was not so independent in that time. So what happened was that in 2012 I did not make a lot of income anymore. And things started to shift for me. So I started loving less what I was doing. When I looked at my friends who were working at bigger companies, they were all earning twice as much money as I was. They were living in bigger houses, they had cars. They only had one thing that they were jealous of, and that was my freedom. And I think freedom is an important value when you're independent. It's something you really love. But freedom doesn't pay the bill. So something really, really needed to change. And in 2013, things got worse. You would like to earn more money as you go by, but the opposite happened. I didn't have any savings anymore. And I really realized, Alexandra, you have to change. You have to change something. So I realized that I needed to do something. But when you're an independent professional, you think you have to solve your problems independently. You're an independent professional who agrees. Well, you're wrong. Because when you're an independent professional, it's all about personal leadership. You're responsible for your own failures. And you need to know when you have to get some help. And we all need help in some way, because you cannot do everything by yourself. Most of you got a lovely talent, but not everyone has maybe the ability to become a great entrepreneur. And that's okay, because people can help you with that. So that's what I did. I consulted a business coach, and we were sitting there and discussing my situation. And I just realized that I never had a business plan. I never thought about a mission statement. I never did any market research. I did none of those things. It was a true wonder that I survived that first year at all. My only goal had been doing what I love. So I realized that doing what I love was actually the only goal I had achieved. Right? So no income targets, no mission statement, or any plan to develop myself in a certain direction. I had no idea where my business was heading to. So I decided that I needed to think about things like unique selling point, and I needed some help. And she said, what else can you do? Because when you're a creative person, usually you have more than one talent. I was writing, but I also studied theater science, and I have a theater background. I've had a lot of experience on stage, so I was thinking, maybe I can do some presentation coaching as well. And I've been writing and editing for so many years. Maybe I can teach other people how to do that. So I started to develop new services. And that was actually a big help because, the market was flooded with other writers and editors. And because I never did any marketing research, I never realized that. So I was actually looking at how I can develop new services to get more income, as simple as that. And then I started on a challenge. I thought, okay, so I'm in this desperate situation. I'm going to, do a little experiment. In a period of 100 days, it's a long period, it's about 3 months, a little more than 3 months, I'm going to try to double my monthly income. It sounds very ambitious, but at that time I wasn't making a lot of money, so it was kind of a very realistic goal. I wanted to double my monthly income in a period of 100 days, and I would write everything that worked and didn't work. And then at the end of that period, I wanted to publish a book about it, about how I managed to do that. And I didn't know if I was going to succeed, but it was a nice experiment, and also I needed to do it, because otherwise I couldn't continue to do what I love. So my business coach helped me to develop those extra services. And then by the end of the period, I did manage to double my income. And I wrote a journal about what did and did not work. And that was actually very good, because it makes you reflect on things. And of course, when something works, you want to continue doing that, so you have more success. But there was one other thing that I did as well. in those 100 days, I wrote down everything that I was grateful for. So I always ended the day with something that I was grateful for. And that resulted actually, after 100 days, I was euphoric, not only because I've reached my goals, but because I was keeping a journal of things I was grateful for. So yeah, it was really, really, really beautiful. So I could recommend that to anyone to do that on a daily basis. So I would like to start by something. I hope all of you brought pens and papers, because I want to do a little experiment how you can think a little bit more as an entrepreneur for yourself. I know you're an artist and maybe you don't like the word entrepreneur, but when you start thinking like one, you can gain more income and you can continue to do what you love, which is, I think, what you want to do. So what I would like you to do is answer the following questions. I will give you, well, we don't have a lot of time, but I will give you 5 minutes to do that. And don't worry if you don't get them all right now, because then it will be homework. I will send this keynote as a PDF to the CA organization, and then hopefully they can distribute it to you. The first question, what is my income goal? It is something that I never thought of. Silly me. And your income goal should be something that covers the rent, but also something extra to save, and also thinking about the future and thinking about insurances. You know, people do get sick. Even if you're an entrepreneur and doing what you love, you cannot prevent from becoming sick someday. So you have to have insurances. The second question, is my art or business, is it profitable? Is there a market for it? Like, I didn't do any marketing research for the copywriting or writers market. But maybe if you're doing it for quite some time, you have a sense of the market, and maybe you realize that maybe the market for your specific art form is not so big. So then comes the third question. Maybe I can offer other services. And then the fourth question, do I need help in any way to grow my business? Maybe you could invest in something. Maybe you could invest in someone. If you can't answer the fourth question, then you got some homework to do, because you always need help. And help could also be, maybe you can partner up with someone. Maybe you can think of something together, and then you have twice your clients as a network. And then the last question, what is my long-term goal? Where are you heading to, like, for the next 5 or 10 years? What is your ultimate dream, your goal, and why? So just take a few minutes to answer these questions. You know, usually you take a whole day to answer these questions, but I'm just going to give you 5 minutes. But you can continue to think about it when you're at home. Are there any questions? No? Okay, I'll just give you some time. So if you haven't finished by now, you got some homework to do. I'm just going to continue the lecture with the second lesson. So the first lesson was the pitfall of doing what you love. And that's thinking that doing what you love is a goal, which is not. It's a starting point. It's a condition, but it's not a goal. The second lesson, goals will create more happiness. Like I said, when I was beginning, I never thought of income targets, but I never thought of my clients as well. So what happened is I just wrote everything for everyone. My clients were determining on my schedule rather than the other way around. And what happened is that if I was writing something about a subject that I literally knew nothing about, it took me twice as much time or maybe 3 times longer because I had to do a lot of research to get the same quality and the same result. So that was not smart because I couldn't charge the client twice as much money, obviously, because that would be weird. I would be a very slow writer. So I started to thinking about what is my ideal client as well. And I learned the power of saying no. And I think the power of saying no is very important if you want to be successful. If you want to focus on the things that you love, you need to be able to say no to things that you don't love. And more importantly, if you set goals, which is what you're doing when you start to think like an entrepreneur, it's very important to be true to that goal. So that means saying no to anything that keeps you from going to the direction that you want to be going in. So this is, if something doesn't match with your goals, your interests, your values or your talents, saying no is the best way to get what you do want rather than what you don't want. So it's a very important thing. Now, talking about values. You're aware of Christian values, but actually we have some personal values as well, because we all grew up in a certain way. We all have experienced things in life, and you feel as an individual that some things are individually important to you. They're important in the way you behave. They're important in the way you make art. They're important for making choices. So values are something that subconsciously are always with you. And the beautiful thing about values is they're a big connection factor as well. In storytelling, when you exchange stories with people, subconsciously you're checking if they have the same values as you have. And this is when you find out that they do, this is where you connect with each other. So for instance, if you want to work together with other people, it's important that you don't have values that don't match, because they will clash and there's reason for conflict and you won't be as happy as you want to be. And also, let's say that you're doing something work-wise, and maybe you're working for a client or a boss, and they ask you to do something that doesn't really feel right because it doesn't really match your values. You will not be as happy as you should be. So to think about your values is actually very important. So what I would like to ask you to think of at least 3 values. So things that you feel are important in the work that you do or the method that you choose, and maybe even as a person. I never really make a difference between personal values and business values because I feel they should be aligned with each other. If not, there's a conflict, an internal conflict. So think of 3 values and write them down. I'm just going to give you a minute for that because we really need to cover a lot more. Any questions so far about values? Yes. Yes, okay, yeah. So my values, as an example, are freedom, mutual respect, and using creativity. And it goes perfect with my work. Is that a good example for you? Okay. So we'll park those values for now. We're going to use them later. Yes, IKEA, we all know it, right? Who ever bought something at IKEA? Yes, guilty, guilty. I just said that thinking of goals, setting goals, actually leads to happiness. It's not something that I thought of, although I have experienced it. It's something that's a common knowledge in the science of happiness. In the science of happiness, they say that they investigated this, and they say that people who set goals are not only more likely to be successful, but they are more likely to be happy, and they even live longer. So setting goals is a good thing for us to do. Could be business goals, could be personal goals, but it's actually like the IKEA effect. Because if you set a goal and you can see the end result, you have a picture of it in mind, you work towards that picture. For instance, you buy a closet, you have the end result in mind, you work towards the picture. The closet could, I don't know how handy you are, it could be 1 hour or maybe 8 hours. I've done it. It could take a long time, and then you're very happy with the end result because you really worked for it. The same goes with being an entrepreneur. You set goals, you have the end result in mind, and you really work hard there to get there. Sometimes you have obstacles, like the IKEA closet, you have the wrong thing. And then you're extra happy when you get there because you really worked hard for it. So that's the IKEA effect of setting goals. And what I would like you to do now is think of a goal that you would like to achieve in the next month or the next year. It could be a small goal, it could be a personal goal, or it could be a business goal. Just for the practice of it, just think of a goal. And, you know, about the IKEA effect, you all know that, well, 9 out of 10 times you always achieve that goal because you have the instruction, it's been tested a lot. But when you're an entrepreneur and you think of things and you're experimenting, most goals you won't achieve, right? I always say when I'm coaching entrepreneurs that if you set 10 things as a goal, then you're lucky to achieve in 3 things. It's a different way of thinking, because being an entrepreneur really means that gaining success through failures. When you fail, you learn something from it and you can do better the next time. So rather than thinking everything is going to work, it's more realistic to think that not everything will work, but I will go with what works, right? So that's a little bit of a disappointment, but at the same time, I can help you with that. Because if you think of a goal, I would like you to match it with the following terms of the goal. Because if it does, you're more likely to succeed in that goal. So the first thing, it does not conflict with your personal values. You just have written them down. Why is that? If you're less happy, which you will be if it conflicts with your personal values, you're less likely to succeed because you're basically not happy with what you're doing. So you're less motivated. Secondly, I have the needed qualities or I can develop these qualities. Sometimes you think of a goal that maybe you need to educate yourself. Thirdly, circumstances are right. You have the time to do it. You have the right location and the market, you know, if you did marketing research. For the time to achieve it is realistic. If I want to become the best flute player in the world, it's not realistic to think that I can manage to do that in a week. I mean, I don't play any instrument, so that would be not a realistic goal. Fifth, it's personally motivated rather than imposed by others. You know, when you're at school, you have to do a lot of things. You have to do it because otherwise you won't get your diploma. But in your business, you have your freedom to choose. So use that freedom, because when you do, intrinsically motivation means that it comes from the heart. For instance, you really enjoy what you're doing, then you're more likely to succeed because you're willing to take that extra step. And your goal has to be realistic. So that means that it's actually the same example as the flute player, but in the broadest sense you can imagine. Because if it's not, you're less likely to succeed. So think of a goal for the following month or the following year and see if it matches those following terms. I'll give you 2 minutes to do that. So again, I will send you a PDF of this keynote, but feel free to make a photo of these very important slides. I'm just going to move on for now. Who feels that they're lacking willpower or discipline in general? Okay, yeah, well. That was the 7th one. Well, in the beginning, we thought about the bigger picture. The 7th one, it has to fit in that bigger picture. You know, you've set a goal. This is where I'm heading to for 5 to 10 years. If it's not in that direction, you have to ask yourself, why am I setting this goal right now? Maybe it's not so important. So, but yeah, about the discipline. Because if you set a goal, obviously you need to think about the steps, the next step that you have to take to achieve that goal. And here comes the willpower, the discipline needed. I don't have that much discipline to clean my house the whole time. I do have discipline to write because I've written a lot of things in my life. So I think most of you have, well, I hope, the discipline to brush your teeth every day. So in general, we all have some form of discipline. And the thing is, it's situated in your prefrontal cortex, right, in your brains. We're born with willpower. So saying to yourself, yeah, but I don't have discipline, it's not really true. You do have discipline. But when you set a goal to do something new, then you need to develop the discipline. You need to use your willpower to develop, to put it into practice. So it's not that you don't have it. You have the tools available, but you need to develop it for this certain task. So I will do a little experiment. Can you think of something that you neglected to do? Something, could be small, could be big, but you know you have to do it, like, you know, the taxes. But you have to do it and you just keep not doing it. So can anyone think of something that they say that they have to do and then they just neglect it the whole time? I see someone nodding yes. Would you like to share it with us? No, okay. Someone else, it could be anything. Yes, yeah, would you like to share it?
Yeah, I have my pan flute, and I love it. I love to play the flute. This is the discipline to practice it every day or every week or something like that. Just playing,
Yeah, it will be on in a second.
playing the instrument like my pan flute. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would like to practice your pan flute every day, but you don't do it every day. So can you think of the last time that you were planning to do it but neglected to do it? When was this?
yeah, but yesterday doesn't count.
Okay, so
No,
when was the last time on a day that
week,
counts?
Maybe, yeah.
Last week,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
But
Because there was this time that I did pick it up and practice, but it's not as much as I liked to do it.
yes. Well, usually you mentioned yesterday. Did you bring your pen
Yeah,
flute yesterday?
I did bring it.
Okay, well
for
let's
sure.
let's just take yesterday. For the sake of it. Because could you have done it yesterday?
No.
Okay, so why is it that you couldn't have done it yesterday?
We were traveling all day.
You were traveling all day. Okay, right. See, the thing is that when you set out for a goal and you want to develop discipline, for instance, playing the flute, you have to deal with daily life. You have to deal with circumstances, and you also have to deal with your thoughts. Oh, no, I can do it later. Oh, no, I'm just gonna Netflix right now. I can do it later. And then later is 2 hours later. Yeah, just gonna have dinner right now. I'll do it after dinner rather than before dinner. And then all of a sudden, yeah, I haven't done it again. So what helps? Kelly McGonigal, she wrote a book. It's a great book tip for you guys. It's called Willpower. And what helps is that you work with two powers. I will not power and I will power. Say if my goal would be to gain weight, which is a good goal for me, I think. Haven't been able to do it for the last 20 years, but it would be a good goal. Then I have to think about my I won't power and I will power. So when I'm really busy, sometimes I skip lunch. It's not helping me to gain weight, right? We can all agree on that. So I won't skip lunch when I'm busy. It's something that I'm not going to do anymore. And my willpower, I can eat an extra meal each day. So I can eat a fourth meal. So I will use my I won't power. I won't skip lunch anymore. So it's just becoming conscious of what you can do. And I will use my I will power to eat an extra meal each day. Now, I want you to think of the goal that you just set for the next month or the next year. And I want you to think of what discipline is needed. So, for instance, when you're traveling all day, may not be the best circumstance to play flute. But then you could decide, knowing if you're going to do that, maybe I will do it half an hour before I get up half an hour earlier, and before I start traveling, I will do it. So I know I've done it. I started the day with a good thing. Then I go traveling, and then it's okay that I didn't do it during traveling because I did it before traveling. So can you see how it works? So, for instance, with writing my book, writing down every day what did and didn't work was also a form of discipline. Because then I realized, oh, when I'm tired, I'm less likely to do those things. Or, just getting more sight on what works and doesn't work when you want to do something but neglect to do it. That's a way of developing discipline because you can work with that. So I would like to give you a few minutes to think of your goal and what is needed when you start to neglect it. So use your I won't power and I will power for your goal. Can we work with that? A few minutes? Yes? Any questions?
The goal we set before?
Yes. I just asked you for a goal for the next month or the following years. Yes. Yes.
The I won't and I will, is it also in a cognitive level of thoughts? Or
Yes, also.
behavior?
Yes, it could be anything. It could be circumstances, but it also could be your way of thinking. I'm not good enough to do that anyway, so why even start? Yes, okay. And maybe when you thought of a goal, maybe you can think of the first step that you can do towards that goal, and it could be anything. It could be calling someone or sending an email or maybe scheduling something. So I would like you to ask to just put the first step into action by schedule the first step in your calendar. Like coming Wednesday or whatever you're back at home, coming Thursday, the first thing I will do Thursday morning is send out that email or start with that pan flute or start with anything else that helps you with achieving that goal. So I would like you to ask to just put the first step in mind and schedule the first step. Can we do that? Yes. What if you really have a hard time knowing what the first step is? Then you talk to someone into helping you knowing what that first step is. Would you like to share your goal with me? It doesn't have to, but
It's a 5-year goal. It's not a
5-year goal,
it's not
yes.
a tomorrow goal.
Yes.
And it's a inkling. It's not. I'm saying it's a goal. It's a maybe, but I'm making it a goal.
You're making it a goal, yes.
I want to explore becoming an art therapist.
An art therapist, yes.
And yeah, when I say explore, it's a goal. I'm calling it a goal, even though
Yes.
it's
Well,
an orientation. Yeah.
the first step could be that you go on the internet and look at what other type of art therapists there are. So, and you could look at their website and see if you can get inspiration from that and think of
I've
your
been
own.
in that stage. I mean, for like scheduling something next week, my brain fries out and it's like writing goals.
Yeah.
Really
So
practical
maybe that's
goals.
not so helpful for you.
Well, I want to be able to think in steps, but I don't think logically in steps. I think
Yeah.
in big pictures or something.
Do you think that thinking logically in steps can help you achieve your goal?
Yes, but
Okay,
I
so
always
that's
fight this stage. Like, oh, I have to be practical. I have to write down a
Yeah.
step. Oh,
What
no.
could help is that you find someone, it could be a coach, but it could also be a friend, who is willing to guide you for the next 3 months, like maybe once a week, talking about the steps you need to take to work towards this goal. Because you have to have some sort of structure. Because if you don't, you cannot evaluate what worked and didn't work. You know, doing some research you already done, but maybe you can need some help with thinking about what kind of art therapist you want to be and what kind of skills are needed. Because then you can think about maybe I want to do a course or some form of education, or maybe I can work with someone who's already is an art therapist.
I think I'm doing those things without writing it down as a step because I'm not so methodical in. I mean, I've been doing all those things. I just don't call them steps. It's my exploring.
But if you're doing them without really any structure or something, it's easier to, you know, to have some blind spots, and it's easier not to measure whatever it is you were doing if it's actually working or not.
I don't even like that word, measure. No, okay.
Yeah, but you don't have to do it for me.
No, but I'm just. No, I'm saying, but I fight the process of what is the process to get there. I do this, and so anyway. But I think it's like writing down what I'm doing. In terms of, you're saying I've been doing these steps. I just don't write them down.
Well, maybe your first step is that you buy a notebook, just for this goal alone. Buy a really beautiful one. I don't know what art form you're having, but maybe you can paint one. But buy a notebook is your first step, and then you could be deciding that from now on, every week on Sunday, you'll take maybe half an hour or an hour to see what actually you have done the past week to work towards this goal. Because if you're not doing it consciously, and you're just doing this and then with that, it's easy not to do anything in 2 months, you know, because you don't have that reflection time. So you have to have some sort of structure, and you have to have some evaluation time, what worked and didn't work. Because then the next step is presented. Because if it didn't work, you have to think of something else that does work.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hello.
I'd like to help her a little bit also.
Well, there you go.
It's good to write it down. Reason why is because if you keep it in your head, friends cannot help you. Because if you write it down, somebody can sit down and look at it and help you to reach your goal. So I advise you really to listen to. She's experienced. I don't know her. But just don't block yourself that I don't like this or that. Write it down. Share it. So you can build a team around you who can help you to get there. Yes?
Thank you. So, you just saw the 100 Days of Gratefulness. That was my second book. This is my last one. It's just come out. It's about how you stay happy as an entrepreneur. And it's about all these things that I just shared with you and more, of course. But I would like to just summarize the 3 lessons that I shared with you today. If you want to stay happy in doing what you love, it's necessary to think and act as an entrepreneur. Even if you don't like it, it does help you. It helps you to set goals. Because if you don't set goals, you just go like that. And you'll find yourself at places where you are not needed or don't need to be, don't want to be even. It's important that you develop willpower, because if you set goals, nothing will happen if you don't have the discipline to follow up on it. And lastly, to be grateful. Be grateful means, I wrote it down, it means that you're grateful for every goal you achieve, like the IKEA effect. It means that you're grateful for everyone that helped you achieve that goal. And lastly, be grateful for the talent you have, that you have a gift that you can share with the rest of the world. Thank you for listening. And I would like to wish you a lot of success with achieving your goals in your entrepreneurship, even if you're an artist. Thank you. Left if there's a question that someone would like to ask me.
Okay, last round for questions.
You mentioned the what was it again? You have to say no.
Yes.
To things that you don't want to do.
Yes.
And my sort of counter question to that is, how much do you have to sacrifice what you don't want to do just to get by, in the sense of you don't have, like you were mentioning, you didn't have enough income, so you have to say no, but how much do you have to sacrifice just to get income?
Yeah. You have to evaluate each offer. So, for instance, if you're someone who wants to please someone a lot, your first habit would be maybe to say yes. But what you need to do is take a pause and say, let me think about it. I will get back to that. And then you evaluate. Is this something that matches my values? Is it really needed with income-wise? Because I found in my entrepreneurship that a lot of times when I wanted to say no, it was not matching my goals, but it was also not a very good offer. You know, for a dime, I have to do something that I don't like. No, not doing that. And then you say, okay, but how about income? Okay, I can understand that. But even when I wasn't earning a lot of money, I kind of learned that if you're doing something for a dime and you're working really hard for 1 or 2 weeks or maybe even a month, it's better to do some acquisition a whole week. You know, better to call other clients and, you know, to invest in the things you really want to do that pays off, rather than do something for a dime that doesn't pay off and just takes up all your energy and time. It just doesn't work. So each time it's evaluation time. You get an offer, someone asks you something to do, you got to think about it. So is it matching my goals? Income-wise, do I really need it? Or maybe I can do something better. Is that an answer to your question? Okay, thank you.
Okay,
I
Alessandra.
see someone there.
Yeah, one more.
I've got a question about the willpower and the will not power.
Yes.
Can I ask a question in, in Dutch? So I can
Yeah, you
explain?
can.
Het lijkt of het belonen en straffen.
Ja.
Ik wil niet of ik zal niet. Is
Mhm.
dat zeg maar dat je zelf straft door het niet te doen?
Nee.
En het belonen van met het eten, zeg maar. Dat ik dacht, oh dan skip je het eten. Dat is dan een soort, dus eigenlijk straf je jezelf.
Oh
en
ja, nee.
belonen met een extra maaltijd.
Okay. She was asking herself, is it a punishment system to use your I will not power? And is it like a rewarding system to use your I will power? Well, it's some of a rewarding system because it suits your goal. So in that sense, it's rewarding. But I would not like to think of it as a punishment to use your I will not power, because to use your I will not power consciously is actually also rewarding, because it's getting you to achieve that goal. Is that an answer to your question or not? The system really is about being conscious of when you fail to do things. So what are the circumstances where I failed to do something? So Kelly McGonigal advises you to keep a journal about it. So, today I didn't play my flute. What happened? Well, I was traveling all day, so that's why. So next time I'm traveling all day, I have to get up half an hour earlier, and then I can play my flute. So it's about being conscious of what works and doesn't work when you fail to do it. And it could also be a thought. Yeah, but I'm tired, so I'm not doing it. Or, yeah, but I'm not good enough. So it's just keeping a journal, being conscious. That's the system. It's all about being conscious. Right? Thank you.
Okay. Alessandra, wonderful. We want to thank you with a little present. It's a piece of art. As a remembrance, when you unpack it, you will see the art.
That's really
so
nice.
you put it in your home, and we are always then with you. We all want to be with you.
I'm very grateful. Thank you so much.
Wasn't she great?
Thank you.
Okay. The next session are some live interviews about, what do you face in your life when you are an artist and to make it work? So Jill Ford, come here. You are going to do the interviews. And do you really want to do that stuff?
I'm not sure. I don't know what I'm letting myself in for, but let's see what we have for today. It'll be very exciting hearing the voices from the floor and from the artists. And yeah.
Okay, who's the first one you want to interview?
Okay. Well, I didn't know if we were all coming up together or they're coming up one by one. What do you suggest?
One by one.
One by one. So let's start with ladies first. I think we should have Ruth here. If Ruth Hughes is here, let's give a round for Ruth.
Okay. They rearrange the stage. Hey Ruth.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
This is Ruth. And she is a dancer, but that comes later. They put here. By the way, we do have translation. Ja? Wir haben Übersetzung. Also, unsere deutsche Freunde, wenn man Übersetzung braucht, haben wir Kopfhörer. Ja? Wo ist unsere deutsche Übersetzer? Okay, hier. Et nous avons traduction en français. Quand tu as besoin de traduction, c'est là. Elvira est notre traducteur. Ja? C'est le mot en français? J'espère. Okay. So we do have full translation to German and French. Okay. You go up.
Ready? Thank you very much. Okay. In the middle. Yeah, that's great. Well, good morning. It's really, really good to see you all, and I hope you are awake. In fact, do you want to just stand up for a moment? Because you've been sitting for an hour. Let's all just stand up again. Let's turn around. Maybe you just want to say hi to somebody next to you that you don't know. Somebody you don't know. That would be good. Okay, let's sit down again. Good. Got the blood going. Okay. So it's really good to see you this morning. My name is Jill Ford. I'm from the UK. I'm based at a college called All Nations Mission Training College in the UK. And my background is in the arts as well. I've been running arts programs there and connecting the arts with mission into God's world, doing a whole range of courses. So I'd love to chat with you at any stage. Come and find me if you're interested in certainly the connection between the arts and mission. But this morning is all about just gleaning from one another and hearing the stories and the experience that we can share and the good practice, hopefully, and lessons learnt over the years. So it's really, really good to have Ruth here in the hotspot to start with. So thank you, Ruth, for being first. It's not always easy to go first. And we want to just give Ruth the opportunity to share a bit of her creative journey with us and the things that she's learnt along the way. And hopefully it will tie in with what we've been hearing this morning about perhaps the things that she's been conscious of, the things that she's perhaps not been conscious of, but even where, perhaps God has been moving as well in this whole picture for her too. As we're here at Christian Artists, we want to acknowledge that God is also shaping our processes, our thought processes, the thoughts of our heart, and the creative journey that we're on. So the conscious and the unconscious are held together often, aren't they? And in times of reflection, that's when we see those two coming together. So we always like to use the term reflective practitioners, because that's what we are. We're not just artists, performers, composers, and so on. We're also reflective practitioners, reflecting back on what's going on. And so hopefully that's what will come out of these interviews, that kind of sense of, yeah, okay, that's where I've been, that's where I am, and this is where I want to head. So the future is also part of that dimension. So Ruth, just first of all, for those who don't know you, can you tell us where you're from and what is your main area for the arts?
So hi everyone, so my name's Ruth Hughes and I'm a dancer.
Okay, wonderful. And can you just tell us how you began your creative journey in dance and just, where that's taken you? So I'll give you a little bit of time to share that.
I said she'll have to stop me on this one. I'll talk for hours. So I started very, very little. So even before me, I've got very artistically repressed parents. So my dad is a scientist. He went to Oxford. He is a physicist, but he also does opera. So in his spare time, he's an opera singer in amateur opera companies. My mum gave up her languages, so unfortunately I didn't get any of that. I'm not a linguist, but she is amazing with languages. She's spent some time in Russia. She's got Russian, German, Croatian, French. It's ridiculous. And her love of languages led her to ballet. So she has a deep love of ballet. And so, but they were very normal jobs. And I think when I came along and I started just leaping around the place to any bit of music, I was like leaping off all the sofas, jumping around, crashing into things. My mum instantly recognised it and went, "You need to do some ballet lessons." So that's where it started. Shall I keep going?
Is it possible for us to have another microphone, just so that we don't have to keep toing and froing? That would be really, really helpful. Thank you. That's wonderful. So you keep that one.
I'll keep that one.
That's good. Now I can get some sound on this. We have some sound.
Was it on the bottom?
Can we have some? Wonderful. Okay, now we don't have to keep swapping between us. That's wonderful. Great. So beginnings as a child, that was great. And so where did this take you in terms of your career and your profession? How did you actually become a dancer and what did you do? Who did you connect with company-wise?
Yep. So I actually have been stumbling along, bumping into things as a younger person. So I don't think because of my parents, I didn't consider myself to be an artist. I think when everybody said, "What do you want to be?" I always said a dancer, but I don't think I actually really realised I was going to be a dancer. And even I didn't train or set out to train professionally, but when I got to doing a degree, I thought, well, what on earth am I going to do for 3 years that I could possibly be interested in? So again, sort of just stumbled into dance. And even when I was training as a dancer, I don't think I thought I was going to be a dancer. I think I thought I'll be a teacher.
Okay.
So
okay.
all the way stumbling through. And then it wasn't until I completed my training. So I trained at the Laban Centre in London, which is now Trinity Laban, as a contemporary dancer, not as a ballet dancer. And it wasn't until I finished there that I went, oh, I'm a dancer.
Okay.
And then I kind of had to deal with the reality of what that meant.
Okay.
Jumping over a big jump, I landed with Springs Dance Company, which, for those of you that haven't run across us before, so Springs is a professional Christian company. So it began in about 1979. And yeah, I landed there and I've been there for 20 years. I realised I've been a space for 20 years.
Give a clap for that. That's really good. Yeah. Sustained yourself for 20 years. And how has your role changed within Springs from the moment you started perhaps as maybe an intern or an apprentice, and then how have you progressed through Springs?
Yep, so started as a dancer and again, didn't think I would be there long. I had absolutely passionately in love with Jesus when I started, and so this was like a nice, safe place to do a bit of dancing before I went off and was a proper dancer.
Okay.
But I think what I realised very quickly was that I was a proper dancer, and I think just stayed through dancer, teacher, leader, and then 12 years later landed artistic director. Had children and kind of withdrew from the performance side, just because of practical reasons. It's a bit hard to dance when you're pregnant. Possible, but rather uncomfortable. So now I've been leading it actually for longer than that. I think 2003 was when I took over leadership.
Okay.
So I was still dancing,
Okay, thank you. So adapting through the organisation, and that actually is something that we all have to do. Sometimes many of us stay with an organisation and we find ourselves creating the role and progressing in our role and taking on either different types of responsibility or just evolving and changing as we go. And with that view in mind, I just wondered if you could perhaps share how you've actually had to adapt, and perhaps what some of the obstacles and challenges have been for you on the journey, that people can listen to and go, okay, maybe it's right that I expect that obstacle. Because sometimes I think we can go in with what we in England would call the rose-tinted glasses on, where you have a pair of spectacles that your spectacles tell you something and have an ideal, but actually the reality is very different. So perhaps you could share with us some of the challenges and the things that you've had to adapt to whilst you've been in Springs.
Yeah, I think they've varied depending on what my role is. So when I started, I think the biggest challenge was that the company didn't reflect what I wanted to do as a dancer, as an artist. So the company was reflective of the other person who was artistic director, quite rightly. And I think so the challenge at that point was just to keep connecting with other people and keep doing what I wanted to do. So I very fortunately live in London, and so just taking myself to other classes and looking back, I actually wish I'd done more. At the time I was very poor, so try to do more earning and less investing. But actually, I did a lot of investment just attending classes, attending workshops, doing things that made me very, very uncomfortable. So I hadn't contact improvisation, when you sort of just throw yourself at another person, is something that you need in jobs as a dancer, but I didn't know anything about it. So you just take yourself to places where you have to do it. So, take myself to weekends, rolling around complete strangers, Yeah, so I think they were the early challenges, was just being brave and putting myself, keeping my training going, and I also did other little performance bits. So even when I was really, really tired, I still invested in doing projects with my friends, other artists, other performances not related to my work, just to keep myself as an artist alive. But once I was in charge of Springs, and therefore Springs could now reflect me as an artist, the biggest challenge then was I wasn't an artist, I was a manager. And so, and then it was myself that was the biggest barrier. And I think I'm always my biggest barrier, my biggest problem, because I remember once, after I'd had children, I suddenly was stuck behind the desk all day when I came back to work. And I remember standing on the table in front of my office staff, just screaming, "This is not what I do!" I just couldn't manage all these words, But I think just discipline and keeping and asking for help and just keeping going.
Okay. And can I ask another question which might be on people's minds as well? Just how did you fund yourself through your role in Springs? Did you have to take on
It's my husband here.
other paid work or?
Yeah, so before I was married, I lived simply. I shared a room in a flat.
Okay.
And I invested as much as I could in dancing and growing my dance education, growing my dance experience. That changed when I got married, and that has changed again since having children, I think. I've forgotten your question.
It was really how did you sustain yourself financially? Through the time?
So now I'm heavily. Once I realised the reality of what it would be to be parents where both of you are artists, I think we didn't have a clue when we had children. We did just sit down and go, this day today, who's going to earn the most money from this day? Is it going to be you or me? It's going to be you. So therefore, today I stay home with the children. So it's heavily now reliant on Richard at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the practicalities of life have certainly landed for you.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the land for all of us, we have to weigh that up, don't we, with what we are hoping to do. But could you also just tell us as well what you feel that you learnt from your professional training? So you said that was a priority for you to keep going to courses, keep up your training qualifications. But what do you feel, perhaps some of the things that you really took from that again, would be helpful for people to hear? That
I don't know. I think that's quite hard to vocalise because it's absorbed. But I guess practical things for me have just been connecting with people who do better. So there are things that I'm very bad at. One of them is selling myself. Another one is talking to people. I'm very bad at it. I'm very bad at initiating conversations with funders or making connections with new people. So I make friends with people who are better at that. So one of them is right here. So Naomi has been working with me for a long time. She's really good at meeting people. She's really good at talking to people. So, we talk to each other, we work together. So that's a really good tip. But also just playing to my strengths. So, there are times when I've had to really push myself, times when I've had to do things that I really dislike and grow in those things, but also times when I just lean on your strengths. I've got a brain, I've got my science brain from my dad, so that's helped me out.
Okay, so that's really helpful because you kind of jumped forward a little bit into sort of the key things really that you would like people to take. So one, playing to your strengths, which I think is always important, and I often say that to my students is, what are the things that you know already that you're good at, and learn from that and build on that. But also involving others, and I think that's come up this morning as well, hasn't it? That the importance of connection, which we were singing about last night, the importance of partnership, and I think for us friendship is a term that we perhaps as Christians understand really well. We have a friendship with one another, and through that we can go further and faster if we go together, which is a Chinese proverb, which I learned quite early on too. But can you just tell us what the future holds for you? Are there any projects that are on the horizon? Where do you feel you're headed? Because it's always good to think, okay, here's somebody who's got 20 years of experience in a dance company. What could they possibly want to do next?
It was quite interesting, actually, when Alexander was talking. I was actually split my paper down the middle and I put me on one side and Springs on the other.
Okay,
because I think I always have to keep my head, in two places at once. And do I still connect with Springs?
Yes.
Is my future still in the company? Still don't know, never do, from 1 minute to the next. But so for myself, at the moment I'm still caring for very small children, and so I'm keeping my options open. I'm a dancer. There's nothing going to take that out of me. So I think there's going to be another stage for me somewhere, but at the moment that's still resting.
Okay.
I'm starting to talk to people. I'm starting to sort of think where this is going next with a body that doesn't work quite like it used to. But with Springs, it's really exciting. Okay. Yeah, so being there for so long. So we've gone from a company of, it was 3 or 4 women dancing in churches. That's what Springs was when I arrived. And now it's really fantastic, the work that we do. So I'm going to rabbit for ages, so you'll have to stop me. But we got 4 strands of work now that we've identified are really working for us. So one of those is a new strand in theatres. So we found through me having children and through just the work that the company does that we are great with children, and not just that we're great with children, but that's not just for churches. So we now have we're now recognised by mainstream arts organisations as someone to invest in, and so we now have a theatres programme that tours the UK with mainstream dance theatre, and that's really starting to take off for us, and that's really exciting. I said really a lot there. Yeah. The other one is our apprenticeship scheme. So we have a dance training course in London, so young people, usually young people, but right up to not young, come and train with us for 3 months or a year, and again, that's really wonderful, wonderful way to learn from each other, I guess, the people to take that training with us. And then the work that we do in schools, again, has transformed from we do workshops to actually we've got a huge amount to offer. So in England, and I know it's different everywhere, but in the UK, schools have to do religious education, and they also have to do physical education, and dance is part of that physical education. And quite often, those are the skills that teachers really struggle with. So they know that they have to lead worship, or they know that they have to do some religious education. It might not be their cup of tea. Same with the dance. They know that they have to do PE. They know they have to do dance, but it might not be what they like doing. And we've got these incredible skills of, teaching Christian education, teaching religious education through the arts, and it's really unique to us. I mean, I'm sure other people do it, but the way that we do it is quite unique, and it's again that's taken off as a business model. Yeah, fantastic. So that's just really working, and then we still do the work that we do in churches. Yeah, so that's still there. So yeah, so Springs is really growing, and each of those areas has got so much more growth and so much more potential, and it's really exciting.
New markets.
Yeah.
New developments.
Yeah,
new
and honing it.
Points. Yes.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Ruth. Thank you so much for sharing, because there's a lot there, and I hope that's given you a real insight into Springs as well as Ruth's own journey. But just before we actually move to another interviewee, I just wondered if there are any questions. If we have to take 2 questions, perhaps, if you want to ask Ruth anything before we have our next interviewee. Any questions for Ruth about her career, about experience, about Springs? Just out of interest, how many other people here are connected with Springs? Just raise your hand. Or if you've had a connection, you've collaborated, you've danced. Okay, that's good. So there's a few people around. Yeah, so they're there to be found. But any other questions? No? Ruth, thank you very much for sharing. Can we give Ruth a round? Thank you. Should we stand up again and just get the blood going? So stand up, turn around. And I'd like to invite Thomas Notling to the stage, please. Thomas, is he around? Yes, Mr. Yellow T-shirt man. Hello. Hi, it's good to see you. You can do that, actually.
But the Netherlands are doing three times.
We're just working out a few things. We haven't had a chance to officially meet each other. So, but this is Thomas. And Thomas, can you tell us where you're from?
Yep. I'm from Austria.
From Austria, yeah.
Not Australia, no kangaroos.
Okay. Are you from the mountainous part where there's beautiful...
In originally Upper Austria, but now I stay south of Vienna.
Okay, great. And we had the joy of hearing Thomas last night playing jazz piano. Thank you very much. That was wonderful. So, how did you begin your artistic journey, as particularly perhaps as a pianist? Is that how we're best to relate to you, or do you feel that you've got other skills that you talk about as well as a composer, arranger?
Yes, right. My professions are mainly a piano teacher, also pianist on stage and composer, but you will see more and more what I'm doing. I started...
So how did it all begin?
Yes. Yeah, in my childhood I had a piano in my room because there was the space was just there to have it. And I had a little train on the piano, and so I was playing on the piano when my dad was playing. Okay. Then I fell down. That doesn't matter, but I was always in contact with the piano. Later on, when I was in school, my parents were looking to the television, and I said good night. I went to my bed and had a radio, and I tried to find some jazz music. It was not so easy to get it at this time, but so I was listening hours and found several pianists which I admire also. And so I started very early to have house music with friends. And always composing, trying things which are not allowed in the classical music, and so find new chords which you haven't seen before, I thought. But so we developed lots of things.
Okay, great. So family sort of situation is quite important, what your parents do and how you find yourself kind of, coming alongside them a bit in the home. I think, and I've been quite influenced as well by what my parents listened to as well when I was growing up. But so can you just tell us where you trained, where you went on to do some training then? Because this obviously became a big, important part of your life. So
yes, at first my parents said it's a hobby. Music, okay, we see you will do it, but let's do another education. So I started with architecture, 4 years. And I didn't tell them that I went to a conservatory. I was, in the night I was playing piano, and during the days I was painting and plans and so on. And I showed them the exams that I'm doing all well, but in fact I was studying jazz piano. And later on I told them it's too much, I will not get everything. And then they said, okay, if you start studying classical piano, then we will support you, but you have to finish the first exam of the architecture study. Okay. So I did everything to get it, and then I made the classical study at the same time with the jazz concert piano final exams. But my parents didn't come to the final exam of the jazz piano. But they supported me. But later on, I got the chance to be a part of a composer competition, and I won it. So I had a very a symphonic orchestra in the Vienna concert hall, and then they came to the performance, and then they said, oh, great, we are so proud. And then my dad wrote on a paper in the restaurant, how much money did you get from the government? And I give you the same. And he wrote it there, but I didn't ask him for the money. But from that moment on, he was glad to have me as a musician.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wow, what a story. Yeah, give me a clap for that. That's amazing. So I'm very interested to carry on about hearing more about your life as a jazz pianist, but what happened to the architecture? Do you still do that? Is that a sideline for you? Do you draw on that for your life?
At the moment, everything grows. You know, I have kept it under the table.
Okay.
Because I'm a musician, I don't want to make that and this. I like architecture. I make lots of photos, as you saw yesterday, my mother was a painter, so I grew up also with painting, so I started again painting, and making photos, and so everything comes together. So I use what I learned in architecture to get the right feeling for different colors, for proportions, proportions.
Yeah. Yes. Proportions.
And I use this also for composing. So on the timeline, how much I give for the big orchestra, how much is for the quiet parts, and so on. And how to make a very interesting increase of the tensions and so on, you know.
Great. So you're seeing the benefits of something that you
yes,
haven't really
it comes over the
do,
years.
But that it's still very much in your life, and you're drawing from that in many ways. So.
If you won't mind, I brought a 50 seconds video. If we just can have a look at this.
Is that okay, Lee? Yeah.
Is it okay?
Yes, please, let's see it.
If you want to look it again, you will find it on YouTube. And if you're lucky, the music is on if you haven't got it yesterday evening.
Give them a hand for that. Okay. An exciting life you lead, we can see, and perhaps we'll come on to some of those projects, but that was really helpful insight. But it's just been really interesting to hear that there's already perhaps been some obstacles and challenges, and perhaps it often can start in a family situation where you don't feel perhaps that your family are on board with your vision and the career that you have in mind. So we could perhaps see that as a kind of challenge already that you've had. Have there been other challenges for you that it would be helpful for people to hear about on your journey? And what have those challenges been? Have they been financial? Have they been emotional? Have they been connecting with others? What would you say has been an area of challenge for you aside from that parental challenge initially?
I was always trying to get into contact with the audience, I tried different styles. So I started at first with a vocal jazz band. Some of them, of you will know Space Vivens, jazz vocal band, 6 voices with jazz band. So I came with them together to a Christian artist. And later on I said, no, I want to play on places where the message on stage shall not be so direct. I want to have it indirect. So I started playing jazz piano solo with program leaflets on the table. So the people first get the music, and then I get into contact because they are interested in and read what I put on the table. And again, with a band was called Ichthys, a jazz rock band. So we had jazz festivals and so on, and did also with the leaflets, so to bring the message, and sometimes a special piece is picked out. But for me, I always thought having a good time, it's great. But it's good to have a view out of the room, you know. So I decided to have the screen. I started to work with African help for the blind. So I had a personal crisis also because my wife died, my first wife, so I decided where to start again. So this took me lots of time to come back again, and but I've learned a lot, and I'm also blessed with my wife now that she supported me through, and my kids through the time. Afterwards, I'm very careful with the time I've got. And so I need to decide what to do, to whom I'm investing. So I have lots of students, as you have seen, from very small to old. Also people who try to don't forget. So I give them a help with music.
Okay, that's great. So yeah, so picking up from what you're saying, so how to promote yourself is one of the challenges there, just how to help people understand what you do, but also navigating, I guess, your skill set in terms of what you will do, whether you're working as a solo artist or who you're working with, and just having that sense of discernment by the sounds of it as to which way you'll go and which groups you'll work with. But it looks like your life is full of colour, and you have many things going on. Could you perhaps just tell us what's next for you? Do you have a creative project in mind? Is there something that you're working on that you'd like to share with us that is currently part of your piece?
Yes. At first it starts with a dream, and I have so many dreams, so I need to skip at minimum 80%. Okay. Don't start with this. Yeah. And then I decide that's I want to do. Yeah. And I want to bring my things together, you know. Yeah. I don't want to copy someone else. I want to be myself. So my story is also with the art forms different, so like painting, photographs, and so on. Yeah. But also the rhythmical things. I always was drumming somewhere, and my compositions, and with good friends, I want to share the stage. Yeah. And also I want to reach people who are not in Austria. Yeah. So I started with networking, also streaming music, Spotify, and Amazon Music or whatever. You will find me. Would be glad to have you. So that's another way, you know, finding a person who makes a concert, but on the other way to reach the audience, maybe at home.
Okay, so new challenges are sort of new audiences and new ways of finding those audiences, would you say? Yeah. And just it would be really good because we really enjoyed your collaboration last night. And tell us a little bit about this organisation in Africa, because you've sort of stretched yourself beyond your own sort of national situation outside Austria, and you've kind of gone beyond that. Can you just tell us a bit about the organisation that you're working with in Africa?
It's in Germany it's called Christoffel Blind Mission, Christoffel Blind Mission. In Austria, Light for the World. So it's the same. Okay. They have a little bit different projects, but the same mind behind. In fact, I asked different organizations like Ärzte ohne Grenzen or Doctors Without Limits, or how do you call them? Without Borders, yeah.
Okay.
And some said, okay, this is a person who wants be made of their organization, you know, so that I come out. But Light for the World, they said, okay, great, you offer help, and so I went there, and then they said, you can go to the archive in Assaf, here in not Assaf, Asla in Germany. You can have all video materials and photos, and so to bring it to the project. And so I made a CD. Is what was brought out for the 5th million operation of the cataract in Africa in their project. Okay. And so it was a win-win situation. Yes. You know, yeah. I went to Congo, meeting some people there, and had benefits concerts with 5,000 people audience, they showed me different places where they're working, and so I got the feeling, okay, this organization I want to support here, and yes. I tell this is good to invest, you know, yes. And this is so I'm. Yeah, it's always good to have one who has seen, and I trust him. So yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and Congo's not the easiest place to be, I'm sure, but good to see that. Yeah, as you're investing perhaps in something that's more on a charitable level, that you are still receiving almost a double portion back in terms of, like you say, partnership, connection, ideas, inspiration, all of those things, which is wonderful. So again, it's about discernment, isn't it, in what we're saying yes to, what we're saying no to, and perhaps sometimes being open to the things that are not paid work, but actually might lead us to a fuller partnership in places, and perhaps finding space for that in our lives as well, that the things that we'll choose to give into from our heart and with our time and talents, but they may not be paid projects. So again, just looking at that. Well, thank you for everything that you've shared so far. Just perhaps the last question, which is the takeaway. I like to call it the takeaway. What, if you had to say anything to the participants here in terms of what you've learnt so far, what perhaps one or two pieces of advice or knowledge would you pass on that you say, you know, from as far as I've got to now, this is the key thing that I would like you to know or like you to remember, or this would be my piece of advice for you?
As a teacher, I tell you, don't believe everything what the teachers say. Because sometimes, yeah, very often they say, oh, you don't know this, you are not able to do this, and so on. You know what you are, what you are able to, and maybe you have to look for another teacher.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much. Thomas, thank you. Well, we have one more guest, which is Torsten Harding from Germany. So Torsten, are you in the house? Yes, here he is. Let's give a hand for Torsten. Torsten, it's nearly coffee time, so just so we know. Would you like to stand up again, just to get the blood going? Yes. Okay, I'm going to have some translation as well, so good. Have a sit down. Okay. Do you want to swap?
Yeah.
Playing musical chairs here. Torsten, thank you. Thank you for coming up to share with us today. And I know many people already know you, but we know that you're a cellist. How else would you describe what you do?
Ich spiele Cello. Ja, nee. Also ich komponiere auch und ich spiele Cello und ich würde sagen, ich bemühe mich, in jedem Stil irgendwie so gut wie möglich zu spielen.
I play the cello and I compose, and I would say I try to be the best I can in every style there is.
Wonderful. And can you tell us how you began your creative journey?
Als ich 4 war,
When I was 4 years old,
when I was 4 years old, dann musste ich mit Klavier anfangen, weil ich zu klein war fürs Cello.
I had to start by playing the piano because I was too little to play the cello.
Mit 5 konnte ich dann das Cello spielen.
At 5 years old, I was able to play the cello.
Ich war groß genug, das Cello zu spielen. Ich war noch nicht in der Lage, Cello zu spielen.
I was tall enough to hold the cello, but I wasn't really able to play yet.
Ja, dann soll ich das, also ich sage einfach mal, ich bin zur Musikschule gegangen.
I went to music school.
Dann so ein Vorstudium, so ein Jungstudium-Ding.
I just went through lessons and...
Yes, High School, in einem sehr frühen Stadium. Und dann habe ich das studiert.
I started high school very early on and then I just went on to study music.
Und danach, ich muss noch kurz was erzählen.
There's something else I need to tell.
Und dann habe ich irgendwie dann fing ich auch irgendwann an, freiberuflich zu komponieren.
And at that time I started composing.
Und dadurch, dann hat sich auch das Spiel auf dem Cello erweitert vom Klassischen hin zu anderem Zeug.
And that's when I went on from playing classical music to doing other styles as well.
Ja.
Thank you. Could you tell us where you actually did your training and what it was that you felt that you really learnt from your formal training?
Naja, eigentlich alles. Also,
basically everything.
Also was ganz wichtig war für mich, war, dass ich einen Lehrer hatte.
Very important to me was one teacher I had.
Also zuerst an der Hochschule, der mich sehr hart drangenommen hat.
And that teacher was very strict with me.
Es war auch sehr schwer für mich und sehr schlimm auch.
It was difficult for me, very hard.
Persönlich.
Personally.
Aber auf dem Cello hat er mich zu Höhen geführt.
But on the cello, he really taught me to do really good things.
Er hat mir beigebracht, mich selbst zu beobachten.
And he taught me to watch myself.
Ja, ja. Und dann hatte ich aber, es geht ja noch weiter. Sorry. Dann hatte ich, also mit diesem Lehrer aber eben, musste ich abbrechen. Das hat der Thomas gut gesagt. Man muss manchmal wirklich einen anderen Lehrer finden.
But at some point I just had to stop taking lessons with this teacher. As Thomas said, sometimes you have to find a new teacher.
Weil der mich kaputt gemacht hat.
Because otherwise he would have broken me.
Und dann hatte ich einen zweiten Lehrer, der sehr freundlich war, also sehr auch menschenfreundlich.
And the next teacher I had was very nice. He was nice on a personal level.
Der wurde für mich so wie so ein zweiter Vater.
And he was like a second father to me.
Und der hat mir die Liebe zum Cello beigebracht.
And he taught me how to love my cello.
So, bis zu dem Zeitpunkt hatte ich nämlich nicht wirklich Liebe am Cello.
Up until then I didn't really enjoy playing the cello. I didn't love playing the cello.
Ja.
Thank you. So, alluding to the challenges of different teachers, and perhaps you're already raising some of the things that were challenges for you, because my next question is, what are the challenges that you found that you've had to face as an artist and performer?
Ja, das ist schwer zu trennen von meinem Leben so. Also für mich hat sich das alles zusammen entwickelt.
It's difficult to say, and I can't really differentiate from my life. It all came together.
Ich habe, also ganz kurz gesagt, bin ich in einer sehr engen Familie und auch in einer sehr engen Musikschule aufgewachsen. Also
The way I grew up was a very tight situation within the family and within my education.
druckvoll, würde ich sagen.
A lot of pressure.
Und das hat meine Musik und meine Persönlichkeit geprägt. Und das beides hängt total zusammen. Also ich kann nicht sagen, ich als Künstler bin den Weg gegangen, ich als Mensch bin den Weg gegangen und ich als Christ bin den Weg gegangen. Für mich ist das eins.
So both my personality and my music were formed by this pressure that I experienced as a young person. I can't say that as an artist I'm like this and personally I'm like that and as a Christian I'm even different. For me it all comes together.
Just thinking about other people who are in a similar situation to you, how have you had to perhaps adapt and change according to the challenges that are out there, perhaps in the marketplace, shall we say? What have you had to do as a performer to make a living, basically, out of what you do?
Ich habe da gar nicht drüber nachgedacht. Also bei mir war es...
I never really thought about that.
Ich hatte immer damit zu tun, dass ich irgendwie zu mir selbst finde.
I was more fighting to find myself.
Und ich habe das große Glück gehabt, also den großen Segen, würde ich
I
sagen,
was very lucky and very blessed
dass Menschen einfach das gemocht haben, was ich getan habe.
that people liked what I was doing.
So, und deswegen war das sehr leicht für mich.
So it was easy for me.
Thank you. Okay, so let's project a little bit further forward now and think about the future. Can you tell us any projects that you're involved in for the future and where you see your life going as a performer?
Sorry, ich hatte gerade so einen Gedanken, da musste ich drüber lachen. Also,
I just thought about something funny.
naja, also ich kann das, ja genau, es hat ja mit dieser zu tun. Also ich bin jetzt, für die, die das noch nicht wissen, 52 Jahre.
For those who don't know, I'm 52 years old.
Und vor 1,5 Jahren habe ich meine erste Band gegründet.
And 1.5 years ago, I formed my first band.
Ja, manche gründen sie mit 15, ich mit 51. Das passt, oder?
Some start when they're 15, I started with 51.
Ja, das ist also, ich fange auch noch an zu singen, was ganz
And I'm starting to sing.
gräulich ist.
Not too good, he says.
Aber es macht Spaß.
But it's, I enjoy it.
Und ja, das ist so ein Projekt, das ist zum Beispiel sowas. Das ist entstanden aus dem Leben, alles zu entwickeln dahin, dass ich mich finde und dass ich meinen Gott finde. Weil das heißt, also im Prinzip ist es ja, wenn du dich selbst findest, findest du Gott. Oder wenn du Gott findest, findest du dich
That's a project
selbst.
that came out of life and out of my situation, and it all came back to trying to finding myself and also finding God. They say when you find yourself, you can find God.
Zum Beispiel, genau. Und ja, das ist das Ergebnis davon. Also, dass ich jetzt sozusagen immer mehr Mut bekomme, einfach, also vielleicht kann man sagen, für Menschen, die auch so unter dem Druck aufwachsen, das Problem dabei ist ja, dass man immer zwei Leben hat. Man wird ja fast schizophren.
So this is the result. That I find more courage, and for other people who might be in the situation that they grow up with a lot of pressure, it can lead to almost becoming two people. You can almost become schizophrenic.
Ja, also man wird ja so. Man kann nicht so werden, sondern man wird ja so. Das ist ja das
It's
Problem.
not only what can happen, but it does happen.
Gerade wenn man, sagen wir mal, talentiert ist und,
Especially if you are talented
und sensibel
and if you're
und
sensitive
temperamentvoll.
and full
Und
of
wenn
temperament.
das unter einem Druckmantel,
And if all that is being put down under a lot of pressure,
ja, dann musst du ja irgendwo hin damit.
then you have to go someplace.
So hast du zwei Leben.
So
Einmal
you
das
have-
Traumleben und einmal das reale Leben.
So you have two kinds of lives, your dream life and the real life.
Und das kommt jetzt immer mehr zusammen.
And now I'm trying to get those two together.
Und ich würde da empfehlen, immer mutig zu sein und genau das zu tun, wovor man Angst hat zu tun.
And I would recommend that you try to be as courageous as possible and that you always try to do the things that you're most afraid of.
Fantastic. Let's have a hand for Torsten. So without me having to ask, you were able to give us a takeaway, which was to be bold and to go for the things, be courageous. Are there any other little pieces of advice that you would like to share with the audience before you leave?
Eigentlich nicht.
Okay, not at the moment. Okay, so I know it's nearly coffee time, but we do have time if you would like to ask Torsten a question or anything about his personal journey, because I think probably the more personal dimension has come out a little bit more in this interview. So yes, we have a question over here, so I will head over. If you could do translation, Lika, that'd be great. Ooh.
Hi, I'm Vive, or Vivi. So I have a serious question and a silly question. So first, the serious question is, are you sure you're 52? Because
No, but
okay, so
they
good.
told me.
And now and now the silly question. So you said you started playing the cello when you were 5. So I'm just thinking, can you just imagine how it would have been, or could it be possible for you to think that you would have started to learn to play the cello as an adult? Do you think that's possible to do? You know, yeah?
Absolut.
Yeah, that was the silly
Yeah.
question, because it's like a highly hypothetical. So, but because I just started learning as an adult, and I don't, it feels.
Naja, ist doch die Frage, was du damit willst. Also, ob du noch auf die Bühne willst oder nicht. Und wenn ich jetzt, sagen wir mal, mit 20 anfange, Cello zu spielen, wird es für mich schwer, auf die Bühne zu kommen, wenn ich vorher gar nichts an einem Musikinstrument gespielt habe oder so.
It depends on what you're trying to reach with what you're doing. If you want to be on stage, it might be more difficult when you start playing an instrument at 20 years of age and haven't played anything before that. So it might be difficult to then make a profession out of it.
Aber.
Aber is good.
Also, ich denke, es sind zwei Sachen. Also, es gibt ja auch noch das Talent. Es kann ja sein, dass man dann ein ganz großes Talent ist und dass man dann noch ganz viel schaffen kann trotzdem. Dann gibt es ja auch noch die Art zu spielen. Also es gibt durchaus Möglichkeiten, dass du eine eigene Art findest, dein Instrument zu spielen als Erwachsener, und dann kann das sowas von nach vorne losgehen, dass das auch selbst sogar auf der Bühne noch was zu suchen hat. Also ich meinte nur, dass mit der Bühne, dass es nicht so diese klassisch trainierten Dinger, die kannst du ab dem Alter nicht mehr so kriegen.
But there are two different things that I want to say. One, you can be extremely talented. If you're very talented and you start late, you can still manage to do a lot of things. And maybe you just find your own thing to do. Maybe you find your own way of playing something and do it differently, and that can really take off and you can be on stage. And I'm not trying to say you can't be on stage if you start late, but it's just the typically classical things, the classical music, that you probably won't be able to do at a high level when you start late.
Thank you so
Und das
much.
Letzte, ich würde dir gerne noch was sagen. Das Wichtigste aber an allem ist, dass du Spaß hast. Also, dass du da große Lust drauf hast oder dass man mit großer Lust anfängt. Dann kannst du auch mit 60 anfangen, dann kannst du mit 70 anfangen, dann kannst du kurz vorm Sterbebett anfangen. Das ist völlig egal. Weil, ja, das war's.
One more thing I want to tell you is that the most important thing is that you enjoy what you're doing. And if you enjoy what you're doing, if you love playing, then you can start at any age. You can start at 60, you can start at 70, you can start right before you die, as long as you enjoy what you're doing.
Yes, I have a question. So, just out of curiosity, what's the name of your band and what's the type of music that you play?
Die Band heißt Kronsohn. Ja, und ja, was spielen wir eigentlich? Also, das kann man schlecht beschreiben. Also, es ist, also heute Abend werde ich hier auf der Bühne was davon spielen. Und, ja.
The name of the band is
Kronsohn.
And it's hard to explain what we actually do, and it can't really explain, but they're going to play a piece of their music tonight, and then we can all hear and see what they're doing.
Okay, I'm sorry we're out of time, but if you'd like to ask Torsten the question over coffee, that's probably good.
I think I have very important. Okay, very short. Yeah, very short. The thing is counseling. I think you mentioned a very important topic this morning concerning two personalities, schizophrenic. I think it was very important. So my question is counseling. Where is a place, especially we live here in Germany. I work here in Germany, and I studied in English, and I work in German, and I feel it's not easy to bring those two cultures together. And my question is concerning counseling. Who can tell me something about counseling artists here in Germany, or who could help me with networking and contacting counseling for artists, especially Christian artists?
Lean, would you like to just...
Na, ich würde einen fragen, der sich damit auskennt.
I would ask somebody who knows about these things.
Okay.
Da können wir gerne nachher ein bisschen drüber reden, aber ich meinte so mehr so innerhalb des Menschen, diese, weißt du, dieses, ja, drehen wir nachher drüber.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, and I would suggest for Germany that I think that within das Raad, so the German artist organization, for absolutely there will be some professionals who have that knowledge and experience. So I would suggest make a contact with Das Raad. Okay, it is really time. And as a Dutchman, thank you, Jill, and thank you, Torsten. And as a Dutchman, there is no life before coffee. So we desperately need to hit the coffee. And then we start again in 20 minutes. Really be on time. Thank you.